3 minutes from now, somewhere in the world, a government will create billions of dollars. No printing press, no trucks full of cash, no dramatic moment, just a few keystrokes. And suddenly, money exists. Not earned, not mined, not discovered. Created. So here's the uncomfortable question. If money can be created this easily, why aren't we all rich? And more importantly, where does that money actually come from? Because the answer isn't what most people think. And once you see it, it changes how you look at your salary, your savings, and the entire global economy. Right now, this matters more than ever. Governments around the world have created trillions in new money over the past decade, especially after financial crises and pandemics. The numbers are so large they stop feeling real. But those numbers don't just sit in spreadsheets. They move, they shift power. They quietly change what your money is worth. So let's slow this down. Forget the idea of printing presses for a moment. Modern money is not paper. It's mostly digital entries inside banks. And governments don't directly print most of it. Instead, there are three main ways money comes into existence, and none of them work the way people expect. First, commercial banks. This is the part almost nobody talks about. When you go to a bank and take a loan for a house, a car, or a business, the bank does not take someone else's money and give it to you. That's the illusion. What actually happens is far stranger. The bank simply creates a deposit in your account, out of nothing. On one side of their balance sheet, they record a loan you owe them. On the other side, they create money in your account. New money enters the system. Just like that. No vault opened, no transfer required. This is how the majority of money is created in modern economies. Not by governments, by private banks. And it only happens when someone takes on debt. No loan, no new money. So money and debt are tied together. You can't have one without the other. Now think about that for a second. Every time the economy grows through lending, total debt grows too. That's not a side effect. That's the system. Second, central banks. These are the institutions people imagine when they hear money printing. But even here, it's not literal printing. Central banks create money digitally, usually to buy financial assets like government bonds. This process is often called quantitative easing. Here's how it works. The central bank decides to inject money into the system. So it creates new digital money and uses it to buy bonds from banks or investors. In return, those banks now have fresh reserves, more liquidity, more capacity to lend. In theory, this should encourage banks to create even more money through loans. But here's the catch. Central banks don't give money directly to people. They operate through the financial system, which means the money often flows into assets first, stocks, real estate, financial markets, not necessarily wages. So you get a strange effect. Asset prices rise, wealth increases on paper, but everyday costs still climb, and people feel poorer even as money increases. Third, government spending. This is where things get a bit more direct. When a government spends more than it collects in taxes, it runs a deficit. To cover that deficit, it issues bonds. Investors, banks, or even central banks buy those bonds, and in return, the government gets money to spend into the economy, on infrastructure, salaries, programs. In some cases, especially during crises, central banks step in and buy large amounts of government debt, which effectively creates new money to fund government spending. But here's the important part. Even this process usually goes through layers of the financial system. It's not as simple as government prints money and hands it out. There's always an intermediary, and often that intermediary shapes where the money actually ends up. Now let's connect all of this. Most money is created when banks issue loans. Central banks influence how much lending happens. Governments inject money through spending and debt. It's a loop. Debt creates money, money enables more debt, and the system expands. Until it doesn't. Because here's the uncomfortable math. If money is created through debt, and that debt must be repaid with interest, where does the extra money come from to pay that interest? It doesn't exist. yet, which means the system requires continuous growth, more loans, more money creation, more expansion to service the previous layer of debt. This is why economies are so sensitive to slowdowns. If lending stops, money creation slows. If money creation slows, spending drops. If spending drops, businesses struggle, and the whole system starts to contract. It's like a bicycle that has to keep moving forward to stay upright. Now, here's where things get even more interesting. When governments or central banks create large amounts of money, people expect immediate inflation, prices exploding overnight. But that's not always what happens, because inflation isn't just about how much money exists, it's about where that money goes. If new money flows into financial assets, you get asset inflation. Stocks go up, housing gets expensive, but groceries might stay relatively stable for a while. If it flows into consumer spending, that's when everyday prices rise. So the same money printing can produce very different outcomes, which is why the experience of inflation feels uneven. Some people benefit, others fall behind. And this is where the hype versus reality really splits. The popular story is simple. Governments print money. Money loses value, prices go up. But the real system is more layered. Money is mostly created by banks, not governments. It enters through debt, not distribution, and it moves unevenly through the economy, which means its effects are delayed, distorted, and often invisible at first, until they're not. Zoom out and you start to see the bigger picture. A global system built on expanding credit, constant intervention to stabilize it, and a quiet dependence on confidence. Because at the core, money isn't just numbers, it's belief. Belief that the system will keep functioning, that debts will be honored, that currency will hold value.